What's going on, everyone? So today we're going to be installing the Abel Components locker bypass kit for the Power Wagon. Now some of you might be wondering why you would even need a locker bypass for your Power Wagon, because it has lockers front and rear along with a switch inside. Unfortunately, the way Ram designed the truck is they made it so you can only engage the lockers on the front and the rear if you're in 4 low. Now that's not always an issue because, you know, frequently if you're needing the lockers, you might be in 4 low. However, there's times that you might want it either in 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive high. Now the issue with the factory locker switch that you have in the truck is that it's kind of picky. You have to have optimal conditions. You have to do like a little rain dance in order to please the locker gods for it to work, and it's not very quick. So there's times that if you're off-roading and there's a sharp turn coming up and you have the lockers engaged, you can turn the lockers off, try to make that turn, but then when you re-engage the lockers, sometimes it takes a little bit for it to actually lock back up, and so that can be kind of frustrating if you're just trying to turn the lockers on and off real quick, as opposed to turning them off, make your turn, turn them back on, wait, you get a blinky light. So it's just sort of a frustrating situation in general. Time length, of course, is the other reason that you want to be installing something like this, because the factory lockers take a while to lock up. And with this kit installed, if your factory lockers are working properly and there's no issues or gunk built up on the magnets, this will lock up your lockers basically as soon as you turn the switch and everything lines up properly. Now there are other kits out there that you can get to bypass the locker switch altogether, and then you'd have to put your own little toggle switches. The downside with using kits like that is that the truck thinks it's in 4 low because that's what you're doing. You're tricking the truck into thinking that you should be able to turn your lockers on, and they don't really work that well because then you end up with weird throttle response, and the shift points and everything are changed because of that, and so it just makes for kind of a jerky experience while you're driving. In addition, using a kit like that doesn't speed up the locker process at all because it's still going through the factory protocol and their little checklist of making sure everything is perfect, and so you end up trying to do weird figure eights, you know, stopping, slowly moving into neutral, back into 4 low. It's just kind of a frustrating experience, and if you want to be able to use your lockers when you want to be able to, then this kit is exactly what you need. And this does fit almost all Power Wagons up until 2019, because the 2019 and up Power Wagons seem to be allowing you to use your lockers whenever you want, including in 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive high, so this kit won't be necessary for you. Now I will mention that because you are bypassing all of the factory components as far as deciding when and if the locker should engage, you could theoretically engage it on accident while driving down the highway if you have kids or dogs or somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, adjusting and turning stuff in your truck. So you can get this kit with a wire setup, so that way you can put a switch in, and that way you can disable it most of the time, and then of course as soon as you hit off-road you can flip your switch and you'll have your lockers fully functional. Otherwise, this is a plug-and-play kit, so let's go ahead and get this wiring undone and laid out and get it installed in the truck. All right, so the first part of this install is figuring out where to mount the actual control box. So for 2014 plus trucks, this is a 2016, it's suggested that it goes kind of here in between the air box, right on the frame rail. So to make things a little bit easier, we're gonna take the air box off here. Now mine will look a little bit different because I've got an onboard air system, so you might see some extra wiring and lines, so that's what that is. But otherwise the idea is to get this tucked up kind of under here. All right, so I took my airbox apart, you can see it right here, and I ran my wires kind of up and under the bottom here, up through here. And now that we've got the box here, then I can try to go ahead and get that installed. Now the one tip that I have for this is you might want to not fully install or screw this in and assemble everything yet. There is a possibility that you'll have to make some adjustments inside the box. Now there are instructions that I'll attach here to show how to do that. It's very easy, but you might need to do that. So don't make this too locked up yet unless you want to take the chance of possibly needing to uninstall it to make those slight adjustments. So keep that in mind while you're installing this. So here's my wire loom, and I looped it down under you know, the airbox and everything, and up through one of the pockets here, so that way I've got all of my wiring right here along with the rest of the wire harness here, so I can run it the rest of the way that I need to. Okay, so I've got this bolted in now, and I can put the lid back on the airbox and start zip tying and running all of my wiring. The next part of our install is going to be adding this T-harness to an existing plug that is on the truck, and that is going to be right down here on the passenger side. Now you'll know you'll have the right harness as soon as you pull that out, of course, and plug in the new harness to that. All right, and then you'll have your T-harness plugged in here to the factory plug, basically intercepting the signal. And so once that's done, of course, go and tuck that back in and zip tie all the wires to make sure that nothing is loose or hanging down. So after you've mounted the control box and you've teed into the factory harness, you're going to be left with 2 wires. The first one is going to go drop down the front frame rail, and this is going to connect to your front locker plug. So of course that's going to be what's powering it. And the second harness has a power plug on it. It has a ground wire on it, and it also has the extra switch harness in case you got that, so that way you can turn the lockers on or off and prevent the switch from actually doing anything, which will go into the cabin. So we're going to go ahead and drop down this front harness for the front locker, and then run this other wiring loom across the radiator to the top by the battery, and then we'll drop it down on the driver's side rail. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our first wire here. This is the one that goes to the front locker, and we're going to drop it down and right through the frame rail, and you should be able to see some of the factory wiring that you'll be able to zip tie this to. So let's go ahead and take a look under the truck and figure out where we need to run this. So once we're underneath the truck here, this is the passenger side frame rail. You can see the factory wiring loom right here, and then this is the plug that we just dropped down. So if you follow this wiring, you can follow it here. It goes up and over the Smartbar, and then right along the frame part right here, and then the wiring cuts over, and you can see there's part of it. It goes over here, and then it drops down right here, and it runs and plugs straight into the locker. So what we're going to be doing is taking our new wire and our new plug, and we're going to run that basically along that wire. Go ahead and make sure you're zip tying along the way, and then we're going to drop it down right in front of the locker. All right, so once you get your wiring run, you're going to pull out 2 things. You're going to find your dielectric grease that's included with this kit, and you're also going to find 2 plugs, but we're going to be using one, of course, for the front. So we're unplugging the factory connection. We're going to plug this plug into it to keep junk and dirt and whatever else from getting inside of there. And then we're going to go ahead and put dielectric grease onto your new plug and install that into the locker spot, and your front locker should then be set. So here's our new plug. This is the one that we're going to be putting dielectric grease on, and then this is the factory plug that we're going to be installing the little cap or plug on. Okay, just like so. So now that that's plugged in, we can go ahead and kind of zip tie this or secure it to make sure it's not banging around or getting squished or caught by anything. All right, so now we have the front locker plug plugged in, and I've now routed my wiring harness right here along the top of the radiator area. And you can see I trace it all the way along here. I've got it zip tied in various spots to make sure it's not going to come loose. And then over on this other side, I have it come right through here, up under here, and then there's going to be 2 plugs or 2 attachments. The first one is a ground, and that's going to get attached to here. You can use a different ground as well, but the way the wiring is set up, it lines up perfectly with this one. And then the second one is going to be hooking up to the positive cable of your battery. And again, if you have another spot to hook that up, you can do so. But of course, it's got a built-in fuse and everything, so you should be able to hook it up straight to the battery. Then I ran the cable right here, the loom, and you can see I've got a plug here. This is the same one that was on the front locker plug, but we have an extension harness that's going to go from here down by the frame rail and then along the side of the truck and install on the back. In addition to that, I also opted for the safety harness, and so you will find that on there on the end, and you can go into your cabin through the firewall hole right back here. Now, if you just leave it how it is, the lockers will work. And then of course, if you are adding a switch, it's pretty easy. All you have to do is cut this wire and add the switch in between here. So very easy to set that up, and you can do so later if you want. So you can of course hook up everything, test it, make sure it works, and then add your switch later. So for now, I'm going to grab my extension harness. I'm going to plug that in. We're going to drop it along the frame rail, and we'll start routing this back towards the rear. All right, and we're now under the truck, and you can see I've dropped my wiring down here, and you will see some other wires and brake lines and emergency brake stuff here and along the frame. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be running our wire up along here with these other things, and we're just going to zip tie it as we go towards the back. Okay, the Osmo, Osmo action. All right, so running the wiring in the back is probably going to be pretty quick, actually. It is the furthest, of course, that you have to run some wiring, but there is a decent amount of space up around the frame rail, and there's a lot of different spots you can go. Make sure things are zip tied really well. I haven't zip tied anything down yet, but make sure everything's attached well, and you should have plenty of room to make it to the back. And if you have sliders that bolt on, you'll have a little bit less room. But if you don't have sliders or, you know, any frame mounted stuff, then it should be pretty easy to run all the wiring up along the rail. And again, just make sure that things really are not in a spot where they could be getting pinched. Now, when I did this, I went up and along the gas tank, up on the top of it, and attached it, or I'm going to attach it anyway, to the brake lines, and just keep it from dropping down or anything like that. And but again, it should be pretty easy to get that threaded up and through there, and then spit out at the back. And then you can see I've kind of followed up along the gas tank there with the wire, and I'll get that zip tied, of course, to make sure it's not getting pinched. And then you can follow over to the factory loom, which is right here. And so that way you can literally have it zip tied onto that and make sure that it is, you know, bending and moving properly to stay out of the way of moving parts. And then we're gonna do the same thing with the plug. We're gonna pull the factory one off, put the plug on there, put some dielectric grease on this thing, plug it in, and we should be set. Now, I got the locker bypass installed. I have not tested it yet. There's an easy way to test it, and that's you just jack up the front or the rear of the truck, turn the truck on, and then try out, you know, locking or unlocking. You can keep everything in neutral, but you'll know basically if the wheels are spinning the same direction when you try to spin them, if it's locked or not. I did not do that, and instead I figured we would just drive around and you know, do an actual test. So let's check this out and see if it works. So right now I'm in 2 high, so normal, you know, driving mode. All right, so there's that. So we're where we should be. And on here, you can see it shows that the axle is unlocked. And let's go ahead and rotate that. Now that's cool. It just immediately goes there. There's no flashing or anything. Okay, and yeah, as I turn, I can definitely feel that the back end is locked up. I'm on pretty hard packed dirt right now, but I can tell that it is, it's definitely locked up. So let's try the front and the rear, and for that I'll shift into 4 high. Into 4 high now, so it shows there, and you can see maybe 4-wheel drive lock, and we're still here, and we'll go ahead and flip that over to front and rear. Now when they both light up like that, that is normal, and that just indicates, of course, that your front and your rear are locked. And let's go ahead and, oh yeah, there we go. The front is definitely locked. It's a lot harder to steer now. The truck really wants to go straight, especially on this hard packed dirt. So that's super cool to have, and you know that we can enable the lockers whenever we feel like, basically, because you know, Ram, of course, did not allow us to do that from the factory. So I think that's going to be an awesome mod and a great change, especially if you're out somewhere and you don't have a lot of room to be, you know, doing figure 8s and backing up and moving forward and turning left and right constantly. You just want to be able to unlock and lock again. It's a fantastic thing. It sucks, of course, that we didn't get this from the factory, but having it added on now makes everything seamless. We've got our factory buttons in appearance now, so we don't have any other extra switches or anything. And the fact that it all runs through this, and I still have, you know, the factory knob and everything, is really cool. And then I guess we should probably do a test where I unlock it just to, you know, make sure that it actually unlocks quickly as well. So there we go. And we'll switch back to just the rear and then unlock it and start driving here. Oh, let me put it into a 2-wheel drive mode as well, just to really emphasize the fact that, you know, we're trying to unlock. Turning's normal. I don't feel any resistance in the rear end, indicating to me that the front and the rear axles are now actually unlocked, and that was way faster than the factory, you know, ever did. Basically, a lot of times they would, you know, stay that way even after I shifted back into 2 high. My rear locker would usually stay locked for a little bit, at least, for some reason. So that's freaking cool. This is an awesome thing. Check out Abel Components. I'll have links down here below in the comment section. And then, of course, if you have any questions on install, go ahead and hit me up. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.